Welcome back to Jaggers Brewing Co. I'm Matt. Today's project, we're going to talk about Hell Saison. This thing was a pretty fun brew to be had. Let's dive right on into it. So this is one of the rare times that I milled my own grains here at the house for this brew. So it was kind of exciting and a little bit nerve-wracking because I wasn't sure if I was gonna get the same efficiency that I had before on this grain bill. Now, we've brewed the same grain bill before on the Farmhouse 1 video, so if you'd like to know a little bit more about just that particular one, the link will be in the description and we'll have a card. Quick refreshers on it. It's 70.1% Belgian Pilsner, 19.7% rye malt, 10.3% torrefied wheat. For this particular time brewing it, because we did something very special with this brew, we used the workup for the Yeast Thief video and pitched it into this beer. And because this was going to be a sour beer and it had some lacto and some other stuff going on with it, we dropped the IBUs down to be 5.7 IBUs. With the intent that hopefully it wouldn't kill off the lactobacillus in that culture. So in doing that, we wanted to ensure that some of that lacto would survive and help drive down the pH of this beer and help make it sour. That particular starter had some Brett and some other things going on in it, so we wanted to give all that a chance to develop and characterize in this beer. That ended up being 0.33 ounces of East Kent Golding at 60 minutes. And of course, as typical around here, we used one more flock tablet and we went ahead and added yeast nutrients at 10 minutes for this. Now, we followed the yellow dry profile on Beersmith to be able to get that nice, clean, dry profile on it, clear and all that. So that way, I felt like that again, with the Farmhouse and some of the other beers, following profiles is one of the best things that you can do to create good beer at the way that it's supposed to be tasted. And I wasn't sure how low that this would get as far as gravity, so I wanted to make sure that we helped it get as dry as possible. So after brewing it, we no-chilled it, as is pretty much the standard way that we brew beer around here. And then the fermentation, once we pitched the yeast, it took about 2 months for it to ferment all the way out. The starting gravity for the beer was 1.052 and the finishing gravity on it was 0.998. So it got pretty extremely dry, which was exciting. Once we punched through that pellicle that it grew, we were able to take that sample and that test, and I was pretty shocked. I think that's pretty much the driest I've ever had a beer at this point. I wanted to be able to take this beer and do something kind of special with it, so I essentially at that point I split batched it. I went ahead and bottled 2.5 gallons of it, and then I transferred the other 2.5 gallons into a secondary fermentation vessel. So the second beer, what we ended up doing was I took 7 ounces of home roasted pecans. I roasted those things pretty good, and then I ended up crushing them up and putting them in a bag, a sanitized bag. Then I took 3 vanilla beans and I cut those up, and I opened them up. I tried to scrape out some of the inside of the vanilla beans to help add that vanilla flavor to the beer. And then we took 20 ounces of organic pear juice and kind of just mixed that all up into the secondary fermenter. Fermentation took off again, had some airlock activity due to the pear juice. So I don't really have a way to kind of calculate how much like actual alcohol that helped build up. At least I don't know how. So I was really trying to hopefully shoot for something that was going to be pretty cool. I was hoping that those pecans would kind of help add like that like oak barrel type taste or something like that. We let it ferment out for another month. The pellicle grew back, so that was pretty cool to actually see that happening in the clear fermenter. After leaving all that on there for a month, I went ahead and racked that off, and we bottled that beer. The bag that we used to put everything in, the pecans and the vanilla beans, we weighted it down with the aquatic marbles. The bag and the marbles were both sanitized. That stuff, once I got the beer off of it, I went ahead and took that bag, those marbles, and all that stuff's together, and it's kind of with my sour kit, so that way, with any luck, hopefully it's not going to run another infection through the brewery or affect the rest of my fermenters or anything like that. So that's just put up out of the way. So the second beer finished at 1.00 for a final ABV of 6.83%, and the first beer finished again at the 0.998 for a 7.9% ABV. So I've been kind of taste testing these things. They've been in the bottle for about 3 months now, combined. One 4 months, the other one 3 months. They're really kind of starting to develop some pretty cool characteristics, which has been awesome. So let's crack open the first one, which we have labeled Saison 1. So more about that that farmhouse buildup that we did for the yeast culture. I kind of try to carve these up a little on the higher side because it being the Saison or farmhouse side of things, I figured it needed a little bit more carbonation. But so again, a refresher's course on the starter that we made. We took 3 examples of farmhouse, the same manufacturer, and we took the bottle drags and pitched it up. Here, this is on the beer can. So we took those 3 bottles, we built up a starter and built it up, and then let it cold crash, and then went ahead and pitched that into the fermenter once this thing was ready. So this thing smells amazing. You can smell the sourness, you can smell a little bit of the lacto. I smell a lot of the Brett. I'm still trying to learn those characteristics of like the hay, which kind of smell that, you know, that kind of stuff. This thing, it smells really amazing. I kind of get some peach on it, maybe a little bit of apricot. This thing, as you can see, it is definitely yellow, but it is not crystal clear. You can't really see too much through it. See a little bit through it, but not a whole lot. Man, this thing smells amazing. So it's definitely dry. Got down to that 1.0 range. It's got a nice bit of sourness on it and some tartness. I don't think that it's unapproachable from someone that likes sours. I wouldn't think that this would be a beer that you would give someone that is sour curious. It is probably a little bit more than like a beginner sour, like a Berliner or something like that. It kind of reminds me of eating those like kind of shock tart type candies. It's not like that sweet, just that sourness and puckerness, and it's crazy that like it wants me to keep going in for another sip. It's really interesting. I really like this beer. This thing turned out awesome. I cannot be happier with it. It doesn't taste anything like the base beer that we collected the yeast off of. So that's pretty cool. I plan on hopefully reusing this culture again and repitching it a few times and see how the character shifts. I might end up adding my own little pitches of other like brats and things like that, and see where that goes and where it heads. So here is the second version, and let's check this one out. So I tried to carb this one up to the same degree, and every sample that I've had so far, it hasn't gotten nearly as carbonated. And here's this one on beer can. So as you can see, it's got some carbonation for sure, not nearly as carbonated as the first one. And here they are together. So this one here being the first version, and then this one here being the second version. Looks like the second version got a little bit clearer, which is pretty crazy, I guess, considering that it's the same, more or less the same beer. They same base beer anyways. Same yeast pitch. I don't know if maybe because this one re-fermented a little bit more, like it got clearer. So that would probably be a little bit of an interesting experiment to run over time. You know, if you could reproduce that every time as second re-fermented ale, get clearer every time that it's fermented or whatever. So this one, it smells a little less sour than the first one. It smells sweeter than the first one. Kind of picking up a little bit more on like the fruit side of things, like a little bit more peachy. But the Brett kind of smells a little bit more heavily on this one as well, like kind of getting a little bit more of that farm smell on this one, kind of like in the stable, more hay and things like that. So this one, I definitely pick up on that pear juice. It definitely has a little bit of a pear and kind of sweet aftertaste on it, which is pretty cool. I don't taste the pecans in there. I don't know if you would have told me that there was pecans in a beer like this, that I would have been able to taste them. Maybe I did it wrong. Maybe it just wasn't paired up well with it, this is pretty cool here. It has a certain sharpness that the first one doesn't, as far as being tart and sour. I don't know what that is. I haven't been able to develop a super palate to be able to diagnose what comes from what or anything like that. I think I definitely picked up on the pear though, for sure. Like I taste it. This second one, it almost leaves me a little bit more like mouth-watering. But the first one, I think I kind of prefer overall between the two. The first one kind of just tastes a little less abrasive, a little bit more rounded. I don't know if that's maybe because it's been in the bottle for a month longer or what. I think the first one would probably be something that I would share more with friends, and the second one would probably be a little bit more because I've become more and more of an appreciator of sours, that I would probably drink that one alone. I think that the second one would probably turn more people away from sours than the first one. I don't think either one of them are probably like beginner friendly sours, if that makes any sense. So these are both fantastic. As I said, the first one I think is probably going to be more of my favorite. My only regret at this point is that I haven't kicked off a second batch of this yet. I've kind of got a lot of little things going on in the background for the channel and brew wise, so I need to get a second one kicked off just because of the long fermentation. Because I split batched it, I don't have a whole lot more of these things left. I've been kind of sharing them and tasting them over time and trying to get a feel for when they're ready or at their peak. I'm at the point where I guess I'm probably gonna stash these things away, see what they taste like in another 4 or 6 months or so. They've been constantly getting better. I think little ticks at a time, but not overly. It's not like night and day difference. You can just kind of taste it getting better over time. So one thing that I would like to do with these is kind of maybe try to mimic what some of the other sour people are doing with the wood barrel aging and things like that. These things I think would probably taste pretty decent, maybe with a wine barrel, or like maybe like that Hungarian oak cubes or something like that. So I might give that a shot this next batch, maybe do another split batch and taste comparison between the two. Maybe try to do a couple different batches of that though, and put some different types of wood in there, maybe just some regular old oak or cherry or something, and see what happens. So with all that said, thank you guys so much for stopping in and seeing what we got going on here. We've got a bunch of cool things happening here in the background, a bunch of cool things going on as far as the brewing and the brew schedule and stuff like that. I've got a lot of cool things to show you coming up. Got some collaborations and whatnot, and we're slowly but surely growing this channel and doing some pretty cool things, and bringing other people along with us, and hopefully, you know, maybe you give something like this a shot. It was totally a shot in the dark thing. I'd seen it done. I've tasted a couple beers with repitched bottle drags and things like that, and I wanted to give it a try, see how it worked, and I just think it was amazing. And I mean, give it a shot. The only thing that I think that you have to be aware of is, if you ferment in plastic buckets or something like that, you're gonna lose that to your normal fermentation vessels. So maybe pick a older one or buy a new one specifically for this souring beers. Other than that, man, I really couldn't be any happier than I am right now about these beers. I don't think they're necessarily competition worthy, just because this is literally the first attempt that I've done at them, and could be happier with them. I don't know if there's any improvements that I would make. I would want to brew them a few more times before entering them. But I'm going on and on and on. So thank you for everything, guys. See ya. Bye. Split batched it.
Duncan. Unhelpful.
Good try. No, get.